how can we then translate the proposals and the recommendations into clear policy action? What I'm committed to doing following the end of this conference is to collate all the presentations that we have thus far and to circulate them to every member of the Executive Council and the Assembly. I think some of my colleagues participated. They were here today and they were excited. The Deputy Chief Secretary was here. Assemblyman Dr. Sayafat Angus and also Assemblyman Dennis, he was here as well this morning up to the keynote address. But what we are committed to do is to move beyond just the conference and into deliberate action. Why this year's conference is strategic? Because some of the issues we are discussing are issues that I outlined in my budget statement, and they are issues that we're bringing to the fore, one, to inform persons of how we plan to roll out a number of projects and programs, and also to receive feedback from, and I like to coin this term, defined minds, and to see how, if we're on the right direction, how to reshape policy and how we can advance some other ideas that we have on the books. Another point that I would like to mention is the funding for innovation. In my budget statement, I outline that we want to develop an innovation center. But how do we fund it? After setting up the center, how do we fund it? How do we encourage persons to come and not to worry about funding, but to come and put their ideas and skills into action? Through our venture capital fund program and through our enterprise assistance fund and grant programs, we have the mechanism set up. It might just be to refine the policy documents. I know for the grant program, that grant is already geared to facilitate that. And we're asking persons to come and challenge us, be the catalysts of change, because the opportunities are available. And sometimes the opportunities are there, and we have seen some successes, but we are aware that we still have a lot more to do. Additionally, I have invited to this conference the chairman of all the state enterprises under the purview of the Division of Finance and other state entities under the Tobago House of Assembly. My chairman of the Enterprise Assistance Fund, the chairman of TICOSWAF was also here. We have the chairman of the Venture Capital Fund. The chairman of the Eco-Industrial Development Company asked to be excused, but there are several directors here. I want to recognize Dr. Hazel, my dear friend, the CEO of TTMF, and other directors are also here. So your ideas and your input will also shape what happens at the level of the state enterprises under the Division of Finance and Enterprise Development. Also the chairman of the Cassava Company, a number of them, they were present. So a number anticipate coming out of this conference, and I'm sure that will be outlined in my budget statement coming up in June, and also we may touch on some of them in the budget revision statement in November, but the time for that presentation is normally very short, so I'm going to have the opportunity to outline a number of them. But definitely in June next year, you will hear a number of our proposals and presentations as we move these recommendations into clear and specific actions. As I mentioned, our state enterprises, just to inform persons that we have started the process of an operational review on all our state enterprises. We're in another phase of that exercise, and by the first quarter of 2016, we will have definitely a report out and a manual guiding the operations of the state enterprises in terms of accelerating their activities and in order to make them operate more efficiently. I want to move to treat with the issue of productivity. I think it was in April this year, I met with Professor Downs in Barbados and also Mr. Pilgrim as we were looking for best practices as to how should we set up the Productivity Council here in Tobago as we grapple with the issue of productivity on the island. And this is an issue that we all have to face, that we all must bear some responsibility to treat with. And I want to thank Mr. Pilgrim for accepting our invitation. And Professor Downs was originally scheduled to be with us, but Mr. Pilgrim also accepted. And I want to thank him for coming and providing us with some very serious recommendations, because we don't have to wait until there's a crisis to treat with the productivity issue. We can be proactive, we can be deliberate, and start to put the necessary mechanisms in place to treat with it. That being said, I wish to announce that later on, we're hoping that this could be done before the year's end, but there will be a consultation. We'll host through the Division of Finance, we will host a consultation on productivity here in Tobago that we'll be dealing specifically with productivity, and we'll bring together the government, the Tobago House of Assembly, the businesses and private sector, the union, youth organizations, NGOs and CBOs, as we seek to tackle this burning issue of productivity here in Tobago. And coming out of that, I am hoping that we can achieve consensus on the way forward regarding the establishment, be it a productivity council, whatever entity it is for us to, in terms of monitoring, assessing the levels of productivity on the island and monitoring it and to have that social pact between business, labor, and the Tobago House of Assembly that will result in a reversal in the productivity trends that we're seeing on the island. With respect to COVE and the Venture Capital Fund, again, business persons, COVE is open for business. And let me say that we have to review our incentive program with respect to COVE, but I think this is the right time for persons to look, to move their businesses and to come and talk with Mr. Mitchell and company as how we can partner together and have a number of businesses set up at COVE. And I want to thank the chairman, Mr. Pierre, for his update with what is happening at the Venture Capital Fund. Within a short space of time, we were able to disburse $4 million. I am hoping by the next time we have this conference that Mr. Pierre will be making a pitch and indicating that, Secretary, the money is almost finished. You need to give me another $25 million. But that is dependent on the and the business plans that will come to the fore, and so that depends a lot upon the private sector and the persons represented here in the room. To Dr. Farrell, thank you. Meeting the socio-economic challenges of internal self-government for Tobago. As we press forward to internal self-government, greater autonomy means greater responsibility. And without the necessary structures in place, as the Chief Secretary said this morning, we'll have nobody to cuss but ourselves. But coming out of conferences like this, there is always the question with respect to what the Tobago House of Assembly is going to do. I want to say that not only the Tobago House of Assembly, but the 250 participants in here today, I want to ask you the question: what are you going to do with the information that you receive today? We all have to bear collective responsibility. The Assembly has its part, but you also have a role to play in terms of advancing the island's development. So I'm asking and I'm throwing out a challenge to the Tobago private sector, to the international private sector, to the students, to the NGOs, to the Chamber of Commerce, to the businessmen, the bankers, to the public servants. What is your response to the information that you have received today? Come November next year, 2016, will we be championing another cause, having fulfilled our duty and having put into place the necessary things that are required to ensure that we advance this island's development? So I want to, as I close, indicate that we have a collective responsibility, all of us. As the lone assemblyman here, I am committed to take the information and to disseminate it to the Executive Council. But once you leave here, I want you to leave with this in mind, that you also have a part to play in the development of this island. And with respect to agriculture and with respect to the common man, let me say that the staff of the Business Development Unit is here and they have listened heartily to the statement of Auntie Jean, and they have taken note in terms of your requests, because they have a mandate and they have been fulfilling that mandate with respect to going out and to talking to persons and to treating with clients and potential entrepreneurs with a certain level of professionalism and care. And Auntie Jean knows that with me and with this secretary, you have an open door. So the staff is mindful of that and they will take the necessary action. And let me say that with independence and greater responsibility, we have to reverse a culture of dependence in terms of, the state has to do everything, the state must do that. But we are committed to providing the enabling environment for businesses, for persons to thrive and succeed, and for persons to realize their potential. So with that said, let me thank you all for coming. Let me thank my administrator, Mrs. Claire Davidson-Williams. Thank you for your support. Let me thank my wife. I think this is her first Outlook conference. And thank you for coming. Thank you for taking the day off. Dr. Kamaria Jack. Let me also thank my friends and colleagues, those persons who came from Trinidad, from Marla and the RBC staff, and all the other persons from the financial services sector, Mrs. Amoy Van Loo from UTC, and Mr. St. Louis from FCB as well, and all my friends. I don't want to start calling names, lest if I forget one, I'll be barred from going to Trinidad. Also, Pixian, is also good to see you. And there's this dear lady who called me sent me an email urgently last night. And she said, I wanted to attend. And that is the former governor of the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago, Lady Joan John. Thank you for coming. And thank you for being here. Could you give her a round of applause, please? And for those persons who I met for the first time, I don't think this will be your last conference. I know that having probably experienced this conference and Tobago might be your first time. I am fairly confident that we'll see you again next year. To those other persons from the Tobago financial sector, those persons who, I could close my eye and, know with a certain level of assurance that you will be with us next year. Again, thank you for making this 9th annual conference a success. And with God's grace, I will see you again next year. In my closing, I also, sitting down in the back as well, is our Director of Finance, who will probably have to, you might be wondering, with all this elaborate and, nice backdrop and so on, what the bill will be like, as well as our BA. But, and let me say this in closing. And Professor King, spoke about, the need for a cadre of professional and dedicated persons. And let me say this conference would not be a success without the work, the hard work of a dedicated group of people. And let me tell you something, and they will tell you, and let me confess, I am picky, I am choosy. They tell I have to approve things 100 times. I will send it back. I want it done in a certain manner. And they put up with that. Well, they're getting paid, so I guess they don't have a choice. But I want to thank them sincerely. I want to thank Ms. Beckles. I want to thank Ms. Beckles of the Business Development Unit and her team, the team for the Outlook Conference. I want to thank Ms. Cassian James, my Communications Director, for all the hard work, for the long days and nights. I know they are breathing a sigh of relief, but we have 2 more events to go, so the hard work continues. And they know their secretary so well. I have started drafting the 2016 program already, so the work just continues. I also want to say, as I leave, thanks to 2 of my friends, Mr. Cotton from the Caribbean Development Bank. Please convey my regards to Mr. Justin Ram, and the president of the bank as well, for really thinking about Tobago and having the staff travel come and to participate in this conference. Please convey our regards. And my dear friend, Mr. Benton Christian, the Vice President, Financial Services at Morgan Stanley from New York. You left the cold. I know why you wanted to come here so bad. Any reason to get away from the cold. It's really good having you. And if I missed anyone, it was not by intent or design. It's not by intent or design, but again, thank you, and thanks in closing to our sponsors, B Mobile, for their giveaways.